Welcome to another edition of Because Miami, Billy Corben's weekly therapy session where he rails against our community of miscreants and deviants and awful people, but loves Miami, even though he hates Miami. We've got a number of different things to get to today. Ron Magill will be our guest. We will be joined by the animal expert in about 30 minutes or so to talk about a small victory in Miami over corruption and, of course, many losses. But before we get to that, from the Washington Dateline Associated Press, a former Miami congressman who signed a $50 million consulting contract with Venezuela's socialist government.
Ay, Dios mío.
Ay, Dios mío. Was arrested Monday on charges of money laundering and representing a foreign government without registering. You have a big, giant smile on your face. You love when we do business by the millions of dollars with socialist governments.
Oh, no. I don't like that. Muy malo. Socialista, muy malo. Comunista, muy malo.
Uh-huh.
That's what David Rivera would tell me. That's what his roommate Marco Rubio would tell you. Did I mention that David Rivera, when they were state lawmakers, was roommates with Marco Rubio? They shared a house that got foreclosed on, obviously, because Miami. And he was known as Marco's bagman. So if you wanted to buy Marco Rubio, you would talk to David Rivera. David Rivera has been a one-man crime spree in the Florida Republican Party for the entire time he's been in government. So 15 or so years now.
Let's give people the entire backstory here. You're unsurprised by this, even though it's hard to be unsurprised by this.
The only thing I'm surprised about is they finally indicted him for something, because Marco Rubio has been protecting this guy, has insulated this guy his entire political career, I think in no small part because Marco might be afraid what David Rivera could tell the government about what he's been up to. I don't think that's a fear. I think Rivera will wind up pleading to a parking ticket here and get a slap on the wrist, possibly no jail time, but maybe he'll agree to not run for office for 15 or 20 minutes. The thing
for
is,
making a $50 million fraud deal with Venezuela, that's what it gets you.
Yeah, I mean, he was an unregistered lobbyist for this hostile foreign power, this socialist government. But what Rivera did was he made a $50 million deal. He got paid about $20 million of it. They're now suing him for not doing anything with that money, and he's suing them for the $30 million balance of that money. But what Rivera did was he spread that Maduro moolah all over town, to Republicans all over the place, to companies in Miami, to Esteban Bovo, the mayor of Hialeah, to the Miami City Commissioners, Joe Carollo,
just to
and DLP.
Clean the money.
It was alleged that the whole thing was a money laundering scheme because of the $20 million that he collected initially from the Venezuelan socialist regime, $13 million of it just went right out the door to these various companies and various like right-wing figures and Republican donors and businesses and politicians right out the door. So people thought that this was going to be a little more dramatic, this indictment, that there was going to be some money laundering here, and maybe there'll be a superseding indictment, that this is just the start of it. But when I talk about the incestuous cesspool of corruption here in Miami, that's not just a figure of speech. I literally mean incestuous. I'm talking about inbreeding you rarely seen outside of Alabama or Windsor. Okay. And what I mean is,
aren't the details here sufficient enough without you alleging incest on top of it?
No. What I'm saying is that Miami City Commissioner Alex Diaz-Laportilla, who got some of this Maduro money, the socialist money, all the while railing against communism and socialism, doesn't even know Fidel Castro and Chavez are dead, but just screaming and yelling about it, really just to exploit the generational trauma of his constituents so he can continue to be corrupt and get reelected all at the same time, while taking money from the Venezuelan socialist regime. This guy dated a woman who is a self-proclaimed Republican bad girl by the name of Ana Allegro. Then Joe Carollo married Ana Allegro. I believe she was his third wife.
I was under the impression that any time Joe Carollo's name was mentioned on this show going forward, we would simply, by matter of edict and rule forevermore, play the Joe Carollo song.
So he was married to Ana Allegro after DLP dated her, some would say at the same time. That marriage ended acrimoniously after like a year or so. Then she went on to date David Rivera, and she participated in a conspiracy to defraud the voters of Miami-Dade by running one of these ghost candidates in a race to help David Rivera win his congressional race. And she did that in a conspiracy with David Rivera, who financed and laundered the money for the scheme. Anna helped run it, and then this shill candidate, this ghost candidate. So Anna Allegro went to prison, the ghost candidate went to prison, and David Rivera remained an untouchable, unindicted, not co-conspirator, but the actual mastermind and leader of the entire scheme.
Still not a literal incestual thing.
Well, there's nothing incestuous about it, but for the fact that DLP and Joe Carollo and David Rivera were all involved with this one woman who was sort of the corrupt connective tissue to a lot of their shenanigans. And then in the end, David Rivera is kind of washing them all with this commie cash from Venezuela.
Crazy, but Miami. Another crazy but Miami story that has a lot of good video around it, audio around it. Ken Russell threatening to immediately resign. You've been making fun of Ken Russell for a long time.
He doesn't need my help.
What is happening here with storming out of Thursday's commission meeting, threatening to immediately resign as the commission started discussing canceling what happens to be his last meeting in December?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
I move that we
Madam
cancel
Chair.
the
Hold
meeting.
on, let Commissioner Russell speak. Was someone's
Madam Chair, this is not about me. And I appreciate the sentiment from folks who spoke, but this is not about me. This is about us as a body. And we haven't always agreed on many things. There's a lot of things we disagree on, but we get the work done. We do the work. Even though we fight, we've still gotten the work done. And I'm very proud of the work we've done over the last 7 years while I'm here and as each of you have come on. My ask is that we finish the work that I've been set out to do. I set the date of my resignation specifically so I could have the last meeting with the things, and we've been rushing them. We've been trying to get them. But I see the will of this dais and where it is. You all want to cancel this meeting so you can take December off? To me, that's disrespectful to our residents.
I think we're going to do
And just out of just simple, please, let me finish, because this is the last you're ever going to hear from me.
I
The
doubt it.
simple cordiality of this body to each other, to respect each other's ability to get the work done for our residents, is being thrown in the garbage right now. So you can expect my resignation to be rewritten this afternoon and count it for today, because I'm done. This is an absolute farce. Thank you.
If I may speak.
It's been a pleasure working with all of you.
No, Ken.
Well, you spoiled the end of my story, but the thing of it is Ken Russell, we have this law in Florida. It's the resign to run law. So if you want to run for another office or higher office and you're currently in office, you have to submit your resignation effective on a specific future date. Ken Russell decided to run for Congress again. Failed. I mean, what was it, like triple digits? He lost this primary race against Annette Taddeo in this Democratic primary. And he resigned effective the first of the year, 2023, basically. And Ken Russell, who's been a city commissioner for nearly 8 years, apparently, Dan, left all the important shit he wanted to accomplish and that he promised to do for the last 2 nearly full terms for his last meeting as a commissioner. Everything he promised, everything important, affordable housing, climate change, sea level rise mitigation, infrastructure, public transit, all the most important. This is going to be his last hurrah, his last meeting in December. And Joe Carollo, who...
Wait a minute.
At the last commission meeting, his fellow commissioners, Ken Russell's fellow commissioners, decided they wanted to give themselves the rest of the year off and cancel the last meeting of the year. And so basically pulled the rug right out.
All the good he wanted to do, none of it could be...
The last meeting, he was going to do it all right at the last meeting. And they like, Joe Carollo, who was...
Hold on a second.
This thing's going to follow him around like the Jaws theme.
Well, but what's worse about it is you're not going to be able to stop saying it. Like, you're not going to be able to say his name less.
Well, what am I going to do? Just for the hell of it, I'm just going to, in the middle of a sentence about, apropos of nothing, I'm just going to go Joe Carollo?
Yes.
I mean, why would I do that, Joe Carollo?
You were saying.
So his fellow commissioners basically just, and they did it on purpose, obviously. They did it as a final screw you. And Carollo wasn't even there. He was
Hold on a second.
Now it's annoying me a little bit.
Well, this is what was going to happen here because you can't keep his name out of your mouth.
Theme songs, man. So he wasn't even there. I'm going to use his pronoun, even though he doesn't believe in pronouns. He wasn't even there. He was on the phone coughing his way through the meeting and then moves to just like, why don't we just cancel this last meeting? And they were like, all right, we're out. And Ken has a meltdown, dude. He has a meltdown from the dais, Dan. And you know what he does? He resigns again. He says, I'm resigning. Forget January. Effective right now. I'm done. I'm out. And he storms out of the meeting. And after he storms out of the meeting, Joe Carollo, attending the meeting telephonically, rips into him. I mean, absolutely says, I was going to wait because this guy was running for office, but let me tell you what I really think of this guy. And just rips into him.
I'm sorry. I didn't want any meeting for a commissioner, that's the last one, to end in the tone that it did today. But Mr. Russell chose that. I never brought this up before because I didn't want to affect his election results for Congress by anything negative. But the people took care of that, the people within his own party. If Mr. Russell had the caring that he claimed a little earlier for the residents of the Grove, and for that matter, the rest of the city, he would have resigned effectively in enough time for us to have been able to had an election for his seat this November, where it would not have cost the city of Miami any additional monies. Whereas now, we might be facing the possibility that it is going to cost the city money for a special commission meeting, because Mr. Russell has always put himself first above anything else, whether it's the residents, Coconut Grove, or the city of Miami. I have nothing more to say. Thank you.
And this spineless, corrupt weasel, Ken Russell, who was a witness and really a party to so much crime and fuckery, and has not been able to grow a backbone to really have a candid conversation about it. We've invited him time and time again to come on this show and say, tell us the awful things that you saw in government and participated in fact, in the city commission, in what is already being recognized by the federal courts as a racketeering enterprise going on from inside City Hall. Ken Russell goes right to his Twitter, and he goes right to the press, and he says, well, listen, I'm not going to really resign today, but if they want to have a meeting, I'll be here. I'll be here on December 8th, yesterday. I'll be here. So needless to say, Ken Russell was the only person sitting on the dais yesterday waiting for this commission meeting.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And by the way, his career ended exactly the way that it should, in abject humiliation, just getting the floor of City Hall mopped with his punum.
His what?
Punum.
I've not heard that phrase. What is putum?
Punum. Punim is Yiddish for his face. His precious Punim. His precious face.
Let's segue from the Punim of Ken Russell to Javier Ortiz making a run for police union president on a racial justice platform.
So Javier Ortiz, of course. Hang on, give me a second. You all right?
Why?
Because Miami. What do you mean?
The answer is always because Miami. This is a white Hispanic officer who once claimed he was a black man.
So Captain Javier Ortiz was finally.
It's a good sentence, right, Roy? That's a good. I liked it too. I enjoyed throwing that out there too. Again, so the white Hispanic officer who once claimed he was a black man is running for police union president on a racial justice platform.
So he used to be the police union president, the president of the Miami Fraternal Order of Police, the FOP. He is now estranged. He was fired finally this year. He was known
an overtime scandal, right? Fired for the least of his offenses.
Well, he is known as the most corrupt and racist cop in Miami history. He, according to the FDLE, he engaged in a pattern of abuse and bias against minorities, primarily African Americans. He has cost taxpayers in the city of Miami hundreds of thousands of dollars in abuse lawsuits. He got promoted after falsely claiming he's black twice. He is Francis Suarez's BFF, his man crush, and now he is running for his old job as the president of the Miami Police Union to, he says, fight corruption in the department and, quote, the disparate treatment of black officers and staff, end quote.
No, it's amazing.
Well,
it's amazing.
Here's the thing about it.
The most corrupt officer in the history of our most corrupt city, documented, correct? This isn't just magazine articles about, although there have been those too, this guy is the worst cop in Miami history. It's documented corruption.
But he's absolutely right, Dan. What he's saying about the fuckery in the department and in the union and the disparate treatment of black officers and staff members, he's absolutely right. Obviously, there's an irony here in the messenger, but it's how can I can't argue with the man. It sounds like he might even be the right guy for the job, because you need an antagonist. A union boss is a different beast. I don't think you should be allowed to be a cop, a current police officer, and a union boss. I think that's a conflict of interest. But he's not a cop anymore. He got terminated. He got fired for all of the crazy shit this guy has done, by the way. All the crazy shit. The doxing, the racism, the physical abuse, the perjury, the lying, he finally gets nailed for an overtime scheme, which, by the way, almost every officer in the department is committing.
Fired for the most benign of his offenses.
But now that he's a disgraced, fired police officer who is fighting to get his job back, by
qualified.
the way.
Now he's a good candidate.
Now I think he's a pretty good candidate for FOP president. And he's saying all the right things, dude. What do you disagree? Roy, you disagree that black officers and staff in the City of Miami Police Department are getting disparate treatment?
Of course. But the citizens are too. And he's the one doing that. He was the one doing that.
Well, not anymore. He's getting shit canned.
Meh.
His main qualification for the job is that he himself has seen the racism up close, because many times he was administering it. But he got fired for overtime, and now he is fighting on behalf of black people.
But can I say...
Thanks.
Can I say, though, this would also be history in the making, because I believe if elected, Javier Ortiz would be the first black president of the Miami Fraternal Order of Police.
Well, congratulations to him. Good job. Hooray.
Before we get to Ron Magill here and some of the victories, it was a victory for Ron Magill and the endangered parts of our environment. Real quick, Billy, locally, a lot of bars are complaining because there has been, out of nowhere really, a hookah ban that is hurting business on Lincoln Road, on Miami Beach. What has happened here? Why is this happening? Is this part of the active blighting of this community that you find that is actively trying to ruin businesses around here by making things more difficult?
Yeah, I mean, the city of Miami Beach is looking to police the kinds of businesses that they want to have in the community, regardless of whether or not they're perfectly legal and legitimate businesses, whether or not they're perfectly legitimate job creators in this community. For whatever reason, they are targeting now. The latest target is the hookah bars. And what they've done is that they've made it illegal in the city of Miami Beach to have hookahs outside in sidewalk cafes, meaning if you want to smoke a hookah at a hookah bar, you have to go inside, which is kind of, would strike anyone as sort of antithetical to the Florida Clean Indoor Air Act, or just the idea that where you would want to smoke a hookah in Miami Beach. But hookah bars on Lincoln Road, on Ocean Drive, around Miami Beach are seeing a revenue hit of between 50 and 80%. Because people come up and are like, oh yeah, can we sit out here and have a drink and smoke a hookah? Like, well, no, if you want to, you can sit out here and have a drink, but if you want to smoke a hookah, you've got to sit inside. So it's like, I don't know what to
stupid.
say.
It's stupid. It's a stupid thing that is making a business less appealing. Why are they doing that? What is the reason for banning hookahs?
Again, I think it's the city government is just imposing their kind of mores and values and on the community. They're just saying this is a business for whatever reason. They don't have to have a reason.
But
Dan.
Is the reason that they just don't want South Beach tourism populated by a bunch of people looking like they're smoking marijuana out of a bang and out of a bong in outdoor facilities?
Short answer, yes. The more complicated answer that the city would give you is that, the businesses where you have the kind of hosts and hostesses outside hawking and bringing people in, these outdoor cafes have created a rowdy kind of lawless environment, this kind of perpetual spring break
it's
forever.
Just young minorities is what it is. It's young.
Yeah, it's an extension of Jim Crow laws in the city of Miami Beach. That's the best way to say it.
We can't have a city where young minorities are smoking outdoors looking like they're hitting from a bong, and now Miami Beach is black and brown people looking like they're all smoking marijuana outside.
Yes, rowdy and unsavory tourists. Sure. That's what the city would tell you.
All right. Excellent.
Like Joe Carrillo.
Again with this.
So I want to see if Roy was awake.
Ron Magill joins us next. It is rare to see in the wild an enraged Ron Magill, and it has been a minute since we have seen in the wild an enraged Ron Magill, but he wanted his 1 minute of time at a public meeting to explain how Miami was maximum defecating on some of the things that he cares about, some of the wildlife in our community, and as a private citizen, he was told to go away. And he didn't get his minute, and he shouted at the city council people, and it was unhinged and unreasonable. It's cartoonish rage from Ron, and it is deserved.
My name's Ron Magill. I reside at 13105 Southwest 107th Terrace, Miami, Florida. I don't live on the golf course, but I live in a subsection called Calusa Condor. I'm part of the Calusa community. Heard a lot of rhetoric, a lot of things here today. One of the first things I want to say is that I took my personal time off from work today, and I am here, and I'm not being paid to say one word or to be here. Number one. Number two is I have been to that rookery, and what's been told to you is about this rookery. You hear experts talking to you about, oh my gosh, these birds, they can't really feed. There's not a lot of fish there. Rookeries are not where they feed. Rookeries are where they go to rest, to sleep. It is a sanctuary for them. They don't need to feed there. The reason why they go to that rookery is because it's protected from all the human influence. That's what makes a rookery, not where they feed. And if you think something like that can't be beautiful, go to a place called Wakotahachie here in West Palm Beach and see what they've done at Wakotahachie. See what that's all about. This is something that you need to understand, folks. You have not gotten all the information. I'm not asking you to make a decision here today. What I'm asking you to is, at the very least, defer this. Defer this to where you can get the information from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, from Florida Wildlife Commission, because, listen, folks, you all are not the first time off on this type of thing. Big
Thank you very much.
Oh, God. No, I got 2 seconds. Okay.
It's 4 seconds over.
I had 2 seconds. You ripped me off.
It's
anyway,
counting up.
The bottom line is you can buy consultants, you can buy good attorneys. You can't buy wildlife once it's...
And you can, thank you.
But can you tell people, Billy, before we get to Ron Magill, the story of Calusa, give them the background on some of what has happened here, the details that matter.
Well, we have some good news and bad news to talk about with Ron today. The rare good news on the Because Miami podcast. And it starts with the story of Calusa, which is a neighborhood of about 6,000 homes in southwest Miami-Dade. It was built around a golf course for which there's a covenant that said for 99 years, this will always be a golf course. So people who buy into these 6,000 homes know that they're going to have this golf course here as an amenity, as a green space. There's not going to be construction or any crazy shit going on there. There's a 49 years, I think, left on that covenant. And the Bacardi family bought it in about 2003 for about $2.7 million. And what they proceeded to do was find a way craftily to break the covenant. They started by deliberately neglecting and blighting the golf course so that it was no longer an amenity. It was an eyesore. It was overgrown. It turned into a liability for the neighbors. And then what they needed to do was convince 75% of the homeowners around the ring. So that's just about 146 people. And they only needed to get 75% of them to agree to break the covenant. To hell with the other, 5,900 homeowners, just 75% of these folks. And they did. They slowly bought them off, the Bacardi family did. And then in classic Miami oligarch style, they go to the commission and say, hey, look, we can break the covenant and we can develop 500 homes here. But what they did first, once they got the covenant broken, they sold the property to the developers for over $30 million. So pretty solid ROI for the Miami oligarchy here. And there was just one thing they didn't count on. And that was, as they blighted the golf course and neglected it, a rookery appeared to blossom in the middle of this lake on the golf course.
It is a great story. It's kind of the documentary story that Billy loves it's syrupy and it's sweet. These birds saved us from overdeveloping. This sanctuary became a sanctuary from corruption.
Kind of, because the county was like, fuck the rookery, which is what got Ron so initially heated at the county commission meeting. But there was actually the entire county commission was just like, screw the birds, screw these protected and endangered species. Let's just bulldoze it and build 550 homes. Screw the homeowners, all this. And but what happened was there was just a recent win in court, and it was kind of twofold. First, the court found that the county did not properly inform and notify the public that this meeting was happening. They wanted it to happen in secret, like they want all this shit to happen.
But Ron stormed into it. Like a galloping hero. He should have been on a stallion of some sort.
I don't know that he wasn't. I think he was riding a bald eagle, in fact.
Soaring into the premises on the wings of his own rage, and he protected our environment.
Well, he and Attorney David Winker, so far so good. They're going to have to renotice it and have this meeting again. But in the meantime, Ron, there was another development, and that is the county has apparently followed up on its promise to monitor and the rookery to see if there are, in fact, endangered or protected species there, and they found them, right? Which means that even if they come back to vote on this, they have to completely redesign this 550 home plan around this rookery. Is that right?
That's exactly right. That area now has to be protected. There could be no building on there because there are protected tricolored herons nesting on there. So it's a minimal win in the sense that we save the rookery. They cannot build on the rookery. So it's not going to be 550 homes. I'm sure they're going to build something out there, but it's going to be reduced. So there is a win there. And they've got to start all over. They're going to have to start all over doing the surveys, doing the stuff they have to do. And I think it's going to be very positive in the long run. It showed that, the little people can win.
And it showed that the county, to their credit, was serious about their commitment, no?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to tell you, I immediately called the Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, after that whole thing, the debacle, and she connected me with the RER folks and with Jimmy Morales, who was a great kind of mediator to this whole thing. Said, no, let's do this right. And to their credit, they did it right. They went out and said, listen, we're going to resurvey this thing. And you know what? You were wrong, because as you remember in that commission meeting, they said there's no birds nesting there. Yeah, of course there's no birds nesting there, because you did the survey and the opposite end of the nesting season. There was no nesting season. That's like, I'm saying, okay, we're going to go to Minnesota and we're going to see what it's like to go skiing in August. Okay, it was crap. There was such a misleading bullshit.
There was evolution, though, on that, but they started with no birds, but then they acknowledged there were birds. And Ron, I want to get your reaction. Dick Norwalk, the vice president of the development company partnering with the Bacardis, GL Homes, he referred to them as, quote, shitbirds, end quote. And I'm sorry, not the county commissioners and not Jimmy Morales, although that would also be an accurate description.
But why you laughed at Jimmy Morales? Before we get to the shitbirds, why did you laugh at Jimmy Morales? The name Jimmy Morales.
Oh, because he is a nefarious, corrupt shitbird. That's why. So
I got to beg to differ with you that on Billy. He's always kept his word with me. He's always kept his word with me.
Even a broken clock, Ron, is right twice a day. But shitbirds, Ron, why should we care about these shitbirds in the rookery?
No, he didn't. We should care about these birds. You know why? Because they're an indicator of the health of an environment that we all live in, brother. They're the canary in the coal mine. When all this stuff starts to die, it's not soon afterwards that we're going to be suffering the same fate. And people don't understand that. People, listen, if you don't like animals at all, you got to understand that they are an indicator of our quality of life. By protecting these animals, we're protecting ourselves. People are so selfish with the greed and the money and the corruption and the freaking developer money can change votes left and right. I'm so fed up with all these politicians that are just to follow the money. That's all you need to do in this town is follow the damn money.
Shitbirds. On that note, Ron, we do need more housing in this community. Certainly housing for families, affordable housing for working people in this town. And if we're going to do it anywhere, we should do it within the UDB. We should do it not on rookeries with endangered and protected species. But the county commission seems to want to do it just anywhere and everywhere. They'll pave anything and everything to build not just housing, but warehouses that will mess with the Everglades restoration, with our fresh water supply. We did our good news, at least a reprieve on Calusa and perhaps a redevelopment around the rookery. But what's the bad news? What is the UDB? Why should we care about it? And what is the bad news on that front?
The UDB is the urban development boundary that was established to protect Everglades restoration areas, to protect our water sources, to protect an area, to prevent any type of development into that area because it's pretty much deemed, special. You can't develop there without encroaching on our health, on our quality of life, on our water sources, on our restoration for the Everglades. It's in the path of the Everglades Restoration Project, and that's why that line was developed. And all of a sudden now, when they've done, all of a sudden you had a couple of commissioners saying, oh, you know what? No, I think we need to build more because you need more building for single family housing. Okay. There's not enough room for single family housing in Miami-Dade County. Then why do they approve for all these warehouses and all this other stuff? They say, oh, this is going to be good for the environment. What a bunch of garbage. That is good for the environment, building warehouses and concrete roads and stuff out there. It is just horrible. Not only that, you're pushing out the farming life, the people that are putting food in our mouths. It is just, I'm livid about it. And, I'm told as a county employee, I can't say anything about it. And I'm not saying it as a county employee. So let me make this clear. All my comments today are as Ron Magill, private citizen, with the freedom of speech to say what I want. And I'm telling you, this sucks.
But Ron, you're not alone. The governor agrees with you. Marco Rubio agrees with you. The federal government agrees with you. The county environmentalists agree with you. Every single organization, every single politician at the local, state, and federal level said that this is a terrible idea.
Absolutely. The mayor vetoed it.
Right.
But we got an override.
What does that mean, Ron? Let's explain to the people.
To override a mayor's veto, because she could stop it with a veto, they have to have at least 8 votes on the commission to override it, and they got the 8 votes. Right. And it was like, I'm telling you, I don't know if it's I don't know what it is, but I'm so livid over it. And I want to, I'm throwing out props now. I don't usually throw out props to politicians, but the mayor, to veto that thing, she went strong and she spoke very strongly against it and why it shouldn't be there. Daniela Cohen-Higgins, the commissioner, also against it. And there's a lot of stuff going on now in the commission. I'll tell you what. Yeah. The whole thing with the vice chair and all that stuff going on now. There's a lot of payback.
I'm no fan of Danielle Cohen-Higgins, but I am a big fan of game of cojones, petty political vengeance. And she really, but here's an interesting point, and you know this, Ron, from experience. There's a lot of deference given oftentimes to the home commissioner, right? To the district commissioner, meaning if the district commissioner doesn't want this in his or her district, we should vote against it. And they screwed her. I mean, she was against it. She said, I'm against it along with everybody else in the entire world except for these, this gaggle of clowns here on the county commission. And they screwed her. They screwed
and to her credit, she sat down with me and we spoke about this, and she told me how much she was going to fight it, and she did. She said everything she told me she was going to say. She didn't, whereas other people did not. Okay, other people all of a sudden kind of switched their vote, and God knows why. I don't know. Is there any money behind that whole thing?
Of course, follow the money.
Whoa. Careful with those accusations, Magill.
He didn't make any accusations. I'm making accusations.
I'm saying, is there any money behind all of this?
I'm making accusations. Raquel Regalado was paid off. I made the accusation, not Ron Magill. And there's great video out of this. Not just Ron, Danielle Cohen, Higgins, Levine, Cava, Rosen, Gonzalez, whatever her name is. But you also had an extraordinary statement made several months ago when this first came to the commission. You have to remember, the developers get infinite time. Ron gets cut off after 61 seconds or 59 seconds.
No, it was 58 seconds, and then he was enraged, and it was theatrical, and he's like, where are my extra 2 seconds?
I didn't get my last 2 seconds.
Yeah, but then you have Commissioner DUI, the chairman, Pepe Diaz. This Yutz gives the developers absolutely infinite time. They get as much time as they want while he's cutting everybody else off. And then, of course, they continued to delay the vote until they could finally buy Raquel Regalado's vote. And Raquel Regalado wanted to be the vice chairwoman of the county commission, and Danielle Cohen-Higgins came in and screwed her at the last minute just this week, which was hilarious. But Leonard Abess, I've been naysaying oligarchs on this show a lot. Leonard Abess is a great oligarch. He is like a fourth-generation Miamian. I think he's the largest landowner in the county.
He actually cares about... He's the one guy with money who's not doing the thing that all the other people with money are doing, pillaging this area, correct?
Guy shows up to the meeting earlier this year about this issue, and he says...
I was born in Miami 74 years ago. My family came here 105 years ago. For a better life, we got one, and we try to give back to our community. And when my family came here 105 years ago, they bought their food from the same farming families that are farming today. And we are not in alignment with this development one bit, and we consider it, I consider it, my family considers it, one of the biggest frauds on this community, the big lie in our community, and a con game. If you vote to approve this and it is upheld, my family will have a windfall of over $100 million. There is no profit if you lose your soul. And I will not lose my soul. I will not turn my back on this community. You asked if people have been paid. Not only have I not been paid, but I will forego any profit I can make on this and do what I can to try to convince you not to do this, okay? This is about money. Understand something. The only beneficiaries of this are sitting behind me wanting to kill me right now. These are the only people who will benefit from this. When Steve Green tells you that this study is bunk, it is bunk. I made a living as a banker. I wouldn't allow any of this stuff on a loan application. They are paid for. They are paid for. It is not true. And if you want, I'll come back and tell you that we don't irrigate on this land very much. We don't pollute, and it's in the best interest of our community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
That's it. We get Ron and Leonard Abess.
I have so much respect for him for that. I really do.
Ron, thank you for being on with us. A reminder to the people, Ron Magill is bringing out of retirement at Moss Miami tomorrow his Sex and the Animals show. It is very popular. He hasn't done it in a long time. It's usually very expensive, but for $40 of general admission, you could spend time with Billy Corben yammering your face off about corruption in Miami. Hopefully he doesn't get too much into the drink, and you can buy Ron Magill's award-winning photography and also watch the Sex and the Animals show, which sounds a lot worse than it is when I say you can also watch the Sex and the Animals show. It seems like we might be having a horse filleted.
Stop it, Dan. Stop it now, please.
What it sounds like. It's not what we're going to do.
Joe Carollo's going to be there?
MossLeBatard.com is where you go if you want the tickets. Tomorrow night, Ron Magill will be there. Billy Corben as well. Ron, thank you. Always good talking to you.
See you tomorrow. Take care.
Say goodbye to the people, Billy.
I hear Moss Miami is just a big real estate hustle. Is it true? Is it true? It's named for Jorge Moss.
Say goodbye to the people, Billy.
Good night and good cuck.